American children are taught the little rhyme, no cuts, no butts, no coconuts. No cuts, no butts, no coconuts. Meaning, stay in your spot in line. Hello, English learners. Today's video will be a bit different because we're not going to be talking about the English language so much, but a bit about American culture. We are going to talk about 8 taboos in the United States. When I say a taboo, I mean something that shouldn't be done or something that shouldn't be said. And in every country, there are things that you shouldn't do and things that you shouldn't say. And the United States is no exception. So because these things are taboo in the United States, Americans might see them as impolite or unacceptable. So you might get a side eye from someone at best, and at worst, who knows? So if you are interested in knowing these 8 taboos, keep watching. This is important. I am not here to say that any of these things that are taboo in the United States are bad or wrong if you do them in your country, because there are many customs that we have in America that might make non-Americans say, "What?" I'm simply stating that if you are in the United States, it's best not to do these things. Number 1 on our list of taboos is drinking. And when I say drinking, I mean drinking alcohol. Now, when I talk with a lot of my friends who are from European countries or from certain Asian countries, they tend to think that Americans are a little bit prude when it comes to drinking alcohol. And this is relatively true. Many Americans only consider drinking alcohol okay in specific situations. In the United States, the legal drinking age is 21, which is relatively high compared to the rest of the alcohol drinking world. Here is a graphic by a nonprofit organization called Procon. In it, we see the U.S. is one of only 12 alcohol drinking countries in the world that require you to be 21. Those countries are in dark green here, so we are quite strict comparatively. So when is it okay to drink? Because we do drink here in the United States. Generally, if you are at home by yourself or perhaps with a few friends or a few family members, it's okay to drink. You can drink alcohol if you're at a restaurant that serves alcohol, or a bar or a nightclub that serves alcohol. But we do have some taboos around alcohol consumption that might surprise you. One is that in most places in the United States, drinking alcohol in public is illegal. And when I say public, I mean at a public park, on the road, on the street, on public beaches. These are the places that we would consider public. Although this can vary depending on the state that you are in, because these laws are actually set at the state and sometimes even more local level. Certain very touristy cities like New Orleans or Atlantic City or Las Vegas might allow for some public drinking, but just know that it's mostly illegal here. I know that in many countries in Europe and Latin America and Asia, public drinking is not really frowned upon. Rules are much more relaxed. I remember when I was in China, it was perfectly okay to walk down the street drinking out of a bottle of beer. You could even find high school age students purchasing wine and beer at the convenience store. It was perfectly okay. Let me know the laws of drinking alcohol in your country. Are they more relaxed or are they stricter than here in the United States? Our next taboo is not tipping. This one can be a bit controversial. It is customary in the United States to give tips for certain services. So to servers at restaurants, to your bartender, to your barber, to your hairstylist, delivery drivers, taxi cab drivers. You could maybe Google whether it's customary to tip someone for a certain service. Commonly, Americans tip between 10 to 20% for services, depending on how good that service was. If you don't tip, it's not illegal, it's not mandatory, but it is kind of frowned upon here. Many Americans will see that as being impolite. This often confuses non-Americans who are not used to tipping for these kinds of services. They think, well, I'm already paying for the service, why should I have to pay extra? It's just a part of American culture. And in certain sectors like the restaurant industry, servers don't get paid a lot of money and often rely on these tips. So not tipping can hurt more than you think. Of course, you could argue that their employer should pay them more in wages so they don't have to rely on tips, but unfortunately that's not the case here, so please tip. Taboo number 3 is burping. If you burp out loud in public, you will get a few glares. It's seen as having bad manners here in the United States. I know in certain countries it's acceptable to burp after a meal. It shows that you enjoyed your meal. But in the United States, people might not appreciate it as much. If you have to let it out, cover your mouth with your hand and keep your mouth closed as you do it. Number 4 is getting in someone's bubble. And when I talk about getting in someone's bubble, I am talking about getting in someone's personal space. So everyone has a bubble, but the bubble around people in the United States seems to be comparatively large. Of course, this idea of personal space varies from person to person, and we all tend to let people who we are more friendly with or more intimate with get closer to us. But for complete strangers, when we are not in a confined space, so not on a bus or maybe on a plane, it is best to stand at least 4 feet away. That's at least 4 feet. More if possible. We like our space. And next we have talking with your mouth full. Talking with your mouth full. And when I say talking with your mouth full, I mean talking when there is food in your mouth. American parents have always told their young children to not talk with food in their mouths. It is better to chew and swallow the food in your mouth and then talk, because showing the food in your mouth is considered impolite. If it's absolutely necessary to talk with food in your mouth, try to cover your mouth as you're speaking. Oh, how was school today? It was pretty good. And next we have cutting in line. This means getting in front of someone in a line. Some people might call it jumping the queue. In the United States, we take standing in line very seriously. And even in elementary school, American children are taught the little rhyme, no cuts, no butts, no coconuts.
No cuts, no butts, no coconuts.
Meaning, stay in your spot in line. To American school children, cutting in line could lead to crying, screaming, a school fight. And even American adults take queuing very seriously. As a person who grew up in the United States, I naively thought that the rest of the world took queuing as seriously as Americans do. But to my surprise, in certain countries, cutting in line is not viewed as badly as it is here, as it is in the United States, especially in countries where you have large numbers of people riding public transportation or very crowded markets. You have to be aggressive to get that spot on the train. You have to be aggressive to get those last few onions. So it's completely understandable. But just know, if you try to cut the line in the United States, you might get a few nasty glares for doing it. Some people might even tap you on the shoulder and tell you to get to the back of the line. And our next taboo is haggling prices. So we could also use the term bargaining. Haggling has more of a negative connotation, but it's when you try to get the person selling a product to you to reduce the price. You're haggling. you're bargaining. And it is something that can be done in the United States, but usually only in specific situations. It's okay to bargain at yard sales or those little stalls on the street that sell little trinkets or maybe items of clothing, when buying a car or when buying real estate. If you're buying something secondhand on a website like Craigslist or on Facebook Marketplace, it's okay to bargain. It's okay to bargain at antique shops. This could also be something that you could Google whether it is okay to bargain at a certain place. But in most places, like these large chain supermarkets or these large chain convenience stores where most people shop, it's not okay to bargain. Their prices are set. And our last taboo is smoking, especially smoking indoors. Smoking bans are very widespread in the United States. And according to the American Non-Smokers' Rights Foundation, 82.1% of the US population are covered by a 100% smoke-free provision in non-hospitality workplaces and or restaurants and or bars by either a state, commonwealth, territorial, or local law. And fairly recently, in late 2019, a federal law was passed that raised the legal age to purchase tobacco to 21. It used to be 18. In Washington, D.C., which is the closest major city to me, smoking is banned in all enclosed public spaces. You might find a bar or a nightclub that allows its patrons to smoke indoors, depending on what state you are in. But in most other establishments in the United States, smoking indoors is not allowed. And even many businesses will require you to stand a specific distance away from their building in order to smoke a cigarette. There was a time in my lifetime when you could walk into a restaurant and they had a smoking and a non-smoking section, and you could choose which one you wanted to go to.
Smoking or non-smoking?
Non-smoking.
Smoking!
But it is rare to find those nowadays. In the United States, many people do not like the smell of cigarettes. So if you would like to smoke a cigarette, it's probably best to ask the person you are with if they mind if you smoke. I personally have lived in 3 countries outside of the United States, and at least 2 of them, smoking is very common. Smoking indoors is common, smoking on school premises is common, and you just generally found more people smoking in public places. So those are the 8 taboos that you should avoid doing in the United States. And again, just because these things are taboo in the United States does not make them right or wrong to do in your country. But in the United States, it's best to avoid doing these things. I hope this video was useful for any of you all who plan on coming to the United States one day. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section if you have any questions. And until next time, English learners.